All right, welcome to Political Animals, where we cover what's going on around the world geopolitically, but we take a closer look at it. Today, we're going to take a closer look at the lunacy that's going on in Germany, which has me absolutely appalled. So, during the Munich meeting last week, Merz, the leader of Germany, said that Germany and Europe should be in it for the long run to continue this war of attrition against Russia through Ukraine until Russia is militarily and economically exhausted. Along with that, he's proposed for spending, which they're going to spend over 189 billion or 108 billion euros in order to keep this war going against Russia, because apparently Russia is a threat to the sovereignty and security of EU and EU nations. In order to do this, he's going to have to cut from social programs in Germany, which has one of the best healthcare programs we've ever seen, cut from investment in infrastructure for businesses and everything else, and put 3.5% of their GDP towards military. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of money that has to be offset from social safety nets. And all of this is done under the rationale that Russia must be fought. Kunle, we've seen this before. We've seen how the U.S. has reached to the point now where there's very poor healthcare. People can't they have to choose between paying for fuel for their car or healthcare or feeding their children, and get further and further in debt because the U.S. has spent trillions on war and on the Cold War and fighting Russia, on Ukraine war, sustaining Israel, sustaining Ukraine, and now Germany is deciding to go down this road. They've been down this road before with World War One or World War Two, trying to switch to an industrial war complex instead of an industrial complex, which Germany was considered number two or number one in the world just a few years ago, and they still have one of the biggest economies. But now they want to become a military economy. When you look at Merz, it's no surprise. Merz used to work for BlackRock. BlackRock is the U.S. military agency, but it's a worldwide agency which lives off of military contracts. And now he's the leader of Germany, and he's trying to convince Germans and Europeans that we need to spend more money on military weaponry from a company that he used to belong to. This is a big conflict of interest, and it's clear to me that the way Germany is going now is through war profiteering rather than looking out through its citizens and developing what Germany's been known for, cars and other types of goods through industry. They want to shift. And we all know what happens when you shift your country's economy the way the US did, from cars and in industry and commodities to just war. It slowly deflates the country until all that's left is money for CEOs and money to prop up other countries to help them fight wars in the interest of the CEOs of these weapons manufacturers. And what's even more alarming is that Merz and the Germans in March of 2025 changed the German constitution, which would say that anything over 1% of GDP spending is meant is not tax spending. In other words, it can't be. It's not considered tax spending. It's considered taking loans. So therefore, the Constitution can't limit. There's no limit on spending now for war. So what they did was they created a loophole that says, oh, 1% and below is spending taxpayers' money, so you can't spend more than that. It's okay. Well, this isn't tax money. We'll take out loans for this through the financial markets and get cash now. But even by doing that, what you're doing is that you're still cutting spending for social activities, because you have to stop spending that much so that your debt doesn't get to a level where you lose credit ratings with other countries. So it's basically a legal way of taking money away from social programs in America. You see what I'm saying, Kunle? By changing
Yeah.
their constitution. This is a country, my sister lives there, in which you get fully invasive medical examinations, which cost tens of thousands in America. You get it for free in Germany. Coming very soon, they won't get any of that. And here's the last irony: Germany was getting cheap gas from Russia and had the world's second. They still do have the world's second most powerful economy, which is beginning to go down because they were getting cheap gas from Russia. And clearly, either the Ukraine or the U.S. bombed that Nord Stream so they couldn't get cheap gas, which made them pivot away from the Russian economy, which would help the country continue growing inexhaustibly, and then turn Russia into their enemies. Remember the last time they turned on Russia, when Russia was supposed to be their friends in World War II, and they turned on Russia. Once again, Russia was giving them cheap gas. Their economy was burgeoning. U.S. and Ukraine bombed the Nord Stream, and turned them against Russia. And now they're making Russia the boogeyman, the same boogeyman that the U.S. has made to go to becoming a war economy in which your president represents the company that's going to make trillions off of this. And at the end of the day, industries in Germany now will be shifting to the US to create jobs for Americans. So once again, Britain and America set up Germany for a trap, which is suicidal. What are your thoughts, Kunle?
Yeah, I mean, you said it all pretty much. I don't have much to say. I mean, the economies of these Western countries are crashing. You've seen Audi lose 20,000 jobs. There's 10 million people living in poverty in the United Kingdom. And they say they want to fight a war of attrition against the country which and it's ironic because Germany still gets a lot of its oil from Russia via India, who buy it from Russia and then sell it and put a markup on it and then sell it to Germany. So I don't understand what kind of plan it is to wage a war of attrition. Even when Germany fought, Germany are not don't have the manpower to wage a war of attrition. Even when they tried to win in the Second World War, it was blitzkrieg, it was lightning. You need to snatch it before the Russians and
Here's
then
the worst part. Here's the worst part.
recover. So,
Here's the worst
yeah,
part. They said that they're not fighting it directly. They're fighting it through Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't have the manpower too. Ukraine is almost down to the last Ukrainian now. So where would they now find the human beings to continue fighting this rubbish war? Continue. Sorry.
precisely. That's the second question that I was getting to. Is the manpower? No amount of money can bring the dead back to life. And once the Ukrainian fighting men have run out, I mean, that is Russia. It's Russia that's more likely to win that kind of attrition. And
Yeah.
when that happens, NATO will now be forced to bring nationals from its own countries, which is why they're trying to militarize. And
Oh
and
yeah.
these military companies, they all belong to oligarchs. They're big business. And we know far right, big business, corruption, all goes hand in hand. Capitalism is not necessarily democracy. That's what we're discovering now
No.
from all this that's going on. Democracy
In
does not
fact,
have,
in fact, capitalism is a specialized form of feudalism. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. So the problems that are being faced by Germany now, they're also record. They talk about anti-Semitism. It's not really anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, but there's record amounts of Islamophobia. Why is this Islamophobia being ramped up? Because Europe needs to get people to join the military forces, and in order to get people to join the military to bulk up the army, you need to give them something to hate. When you give them something to hate, you can motivate them to kill. When you motivate them to kill, it's easier to what do you call that thing when you enlist soldiers? I
Yes. Yes.
forgot.
Draft.
Yes, it's easier to draft soldiers, and Europe needs to draft the manpower.
So
All
very
the
quickly, sorry to interrupt you, but here's why. Let me tell you why I'm interrupting. Let me tell you why
yeah,
I'm interrupting you. Germany now starting to hand out biometrics to young males under 18, saying that we just want to know if you're physically fit. We're not going to draft you, but we want to know who we can ask to join us in the army through voluntary. So that's the first sign of it, because they've created a law now where kids under 18 have to do fit biometrics and physical tests, and they say they're doing it just for marketing so that they can know who to ask to join the army rather than to force them. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
another way that they're going to try to raise get soldiers is they're going, which has not really worked for them because their people don't want it. But if they increase immigration on the condition that you join the army, because
Yeah.
I mean, the Spanish embassy is about a few minutes walk from me. There's always a queue there. At 6 o'clock in the morning, there is a queue every single day. So there's plenty of people, but the problem is that people don't want them in. This would have been the perfect. It's a final solution for the Germans, because they like final solution.
That's I did think.
Um, to get an army that they can get of people
Said will go.
that
Said will go. He'll go.
lie and won't affect their population. Their best option is to take in lots of immigrant males to fight the battle for them. I think that that's going to happen at some point, and it's
Oh yeah,
going
here's
to
what they
piss
do.
and it's going to
Kula, here's
piss
what
off
they
the
do.
population. It's going to
Kula, here's
piss
what they
off the
do. here's what we're gonna do. As soon as a Nigerian or someone from Ghana enters and they'll sign the contract, they'll send them straight to Ukraine. So it solves two problems. They won't become a statistic in Germany, and they'll be part of the meat grinder for the Ukrainian war. That's what I predict. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually what I see. And the immigration is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. There are going to be more foreigners in Europe. Europe will be getting browner and browner because Europeans are simply not reproducing. Caucasians are not reproducing. They're not. Their birth rates are low and they need replacement. Not just the manpower for the war, but even to maintain their
And,
services.
and, and strangely enough, there's a lot of people from Syria and Iran and Iraq, no, and Iraq that live in and Lebanon that live in Germany, and they do most of the
Yeah.
labor, bus drivers, mechanics, things like that. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, because to grow any business, you need people. If you're selling apples, you need more people to buy apples. So you need more people. And if there's not
Yeah,
enough more
people is
people,
money actually. People is money actually. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so we're gonna end
So
soon, but the last point I want to make is so their theory is that by tying Russia down to a war, Russia's economy will collapse because they're spending too much of their GDP. But what they're forgetting is that Russia is part of the global South and part of China and Eurasia, the BRICS. So they're part of a robust economy, and Russia has the most raw minerals and raw materials in the world. So they have an inexhaustible amount of raw materials, which they're making off money. So Russia's like the 1950s US, which could go to war and still produce and have a viable, can have a double economy. And they're actually making money off of these the only war they're really having is the Ukraine, which they're winning slowly, gauging it, spending not as much, and they're getting backed up by China, which is the logistics hub of the world. So long as Russia aligns itself with China and has this much inexhaustible mineral wealth and is connected to the Sahel and everywhere else, their economy, the war of attrition, Europe will die out before Russia does, money wise. That's my last thought. What do you think?
on the thought of money, Russia actually has an incredibly great strategy here. It doesn't need to worry about Ukraine.
Yeah,
China will crush America with its wallet if
yeah,
America messes up in Iran. So that
yeah.
is actually crucial from the financial and economic point of view.
Also, if the
If
Russian war goes south, if the war with Ukraine goes south, China will also step in there. Yeah,
Yes, and once if you crush the U.S. economy, how are they going to provide for Ukraine? So
yeah.
so the two are very much interlinked because of the economics of it. So
Yeah.
I don't see an easy way out of this
No,
for
if we study
Germany.
history, Germany's going to collapse. And I'm going to juxtapose Germany with France. As much as I hate the French, right? Macron is smart. He's doing deals. He's trying to do deals with BRICS. He does deals with everybody, and he's not committing China's GDP to. I mean, not China, France's GDP to all this rubbish. He said, let Germany do it. You get my point. Once again,
Yeah,
Germany is going to make themselves the sacrificial lamb for Europe. What are your last thoughts? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Germany is going to be the sacrificial lamb for Europe. I was laughing at a slightly different thing. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
bit of
Wait,
leaders Sarkozy denying support helping ISIL, and Putin denying using dart frogs to kill Novotny. I'm just
oh, yeah.
everybody's at it. They're all at it.
Oh, this
I've
is
never
crazy.
seen it
in
going on.
general, in general, not America, but in general, the Europeans are the most violent people on earth, and they're the people that's going to bring our world to the end. Not even America. America is imperial, but we don't have this level of the Europeans. They fight themselves. They fight everybody. They even fight themselves more than they fight others. These wars going on between Germany and Britain and France, yeah,
Yeah.
and
For
Russia.
the first time this year, apparently, the birth rate amongst minorities was greater than white people. First time this year. As America becomes more minority based,
Yeah,
I think that the so America is going to change. This is the one last hurrah for the
but
white
here's the
race in
problem.
America.
Kule, here's the problem.
Yes,
Black
one hell of a
people
hurrah.
But Kunle, here's the problem. People who are in America, whether they're white or black, they have an imperial mindset. So there'll just be black people who have an imperial anti-African mindset anyway. Do you see what I'm saying? Because
Yeah,
psychological
yeah.
programming, they're Westerners. Their skin is black, but they become Westerners. So when black people of color move to Europe, they'll even be saying, "Oh, Africans ain't shit." You'll see a black person saying that, or we need to attack Iran. So they say America's great, Britain is great. So even though they're beginning repopulated by people of color, those people are being indoctrinated into their mindset. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the
a
danger.
lot of Americans indoctrinated into thinking that they're so much better than Africa. But in reality, the people who make America rich are not them. The people, they're probably just as
No,
poor as
Kunle,
most Africans.
the whole industrial revolution, which raised Europe above everybody, was built off of free labor and stealing products from Africa. That's why the U.S. and the West have an advantage. But now China and other countries are catching up because they're building their wealth logistically and rationally, and not through the shortcut of labor, slavery, and colonialism. So the Western nations don't know how to do economy other than slavery and colonialism. So that's why they're not winning in the modern world economy. Your last thoughts. Then
Yeah,
we out of
last
here.
thoughts. China, you just said it. You know, the reason why China is dominating is because they're just doing fair deals. They're not
Yeah.
doing the deal must favor me and suffer you. They're not doing that. And
Yeah.
everybody's going to run to the fair deal. Basic justice is power. And that is the way that, because of that, I don't see how China can lose. America cannot win with this strategy of
Yeah.
fighting every. You can't. I don't care how many bullets you've got. You can't win like that. And Germany also, this force, this European culture of force, it never ends well. We've seen
No.
just never ends well. And Russia has never been interested in invading Western Europe.
No.
To my mind, throughout the millennium, throughout history, they've never been interested
No.
in invading.
Russia is more of a they're a local hegemony. They a lot of these small Uzbekistan countries they do that, but not at a global level like the Europeans do.
They don't even have that culture of supremacy. That culture of
No.
supremacy is the
Well,
domain of the.
Russia is a matriarchy. They call it the
Yeah,
motherland. You understand what
yeah.
I'm saying? They're a matriarchy. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
they've
right.
got land. They don't need Western European land. And you see, you know, that's why it's France and Germany and Britain. Those three countries are the ones that have had that imperial idea of taking over the world. And because they've tried to do it, they believe everyone else is like them given the opportunity.
Yeah.
But
They
Africa
believe.
doesn't have a history of colonialism, at least not in Africa.
So,
It may have buffer states in Eastern Europe, but they didn't operate in the way that they operated African colonies. They
yeah.
treated African colonies far worse than Russia treated its Warsaw Pact nations, although both sides didn't treat them well. But what they did was nothing as bad as what colonialism was. So I mean, they
Oh yeah.
can't win. Can't win
No, they
because they
can't.
can't. They don't like fair deal. Western Europe sees
It's not
equality
part of
as
the
oppression.
Western psyche. Cooperation is not part of the Western psyche. It's domination.
Yeah, they see equality as oppression.
Yeah, and they also see cooperation as weakness. But anyway, take us out.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting look at the Germans as they prepare for a third time basis of Russians again, and we shall see what becomes of that. And from myself and Mustafa, I bid you goodbye, farewell, adieu, and Wiedersehen. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Kool-Aid, what did the future Germans say given the way populations are changing? They said,
Oh,
I'll be black.